House Chairperson, Otto, Africa. Today, the UAT rise with a deep sense of urgency to address the matter that strike at the very foundation of our democratic project, the safety and security of our learners and educators in the basic education system. Let us begin with the sobering reality. According to School Violence in South Africa report published by the Center of Justice and Crime Prevention and reinforced by the SAPS annual crime statistic, incidents of school violence, including bullying, physical assault, sexual harassment, gangsterism, and the use of weapons are not isolated. They are systematic. School meant to be the safe haven of knowledge and growth have become the breeding ground for fear and trauma. A Human Science Research Council survey found that 1 in 5 learners have seen someone bring a weapon to school. Honorable members, this is not just a security concern, it's a national emergency. Let us ask ourselves, how can we teach children to dream big when they must first survive the school day? School safety is not an isolated issue. It is deeply intertwined with poverty, inequality, unemployment, and broken family structures. The very social ills that the education system is supposed to help dismantle. The South African School Act of 1996 mandates a safe learning environment, but compliance is patchy, especially in the under-resourced communities. Our teachers, already burdened with large classrooms and administration tasks, are expected to be educators, counselors, and security personnel, often without proper training in conflict mediation or trauma management. The South African Democratic Teachers Union has repeatedly called for more mental health and social support staff in schools, call which gone largely ignored. Let's be honest, this crisis has persisted because of fragmented unaccountability. The Department of Basic Education, Provisional Education Department, school governing bodies and local municipalities all point fingers at each other. Meanwhile, our children suffer. Where is the interministerial collaboration between basic education, police, health, and social development? Where is the specialized school safety unit that were promised? Where is the enforcement of Section 24 of the Constitution, which guarantee everyone has a right to environment that is not harmful to their health and their well-being?
Remember, your time is now expired.
Bambo.
Thank you. Is there a speaker from Good? The Honorable Low.
Oh, thank you very much, House Chair. Ardidi Maleng Bagolo, Ardidi Maleng Bagolo, Ardidi Maleng. We stand together in this house to address a matter of profound importance, one that touches the very heart of our nation's future. The safety and well-being of our children in schools. As the African National Congress, we have consistently championed the right of every child to a quality education in an environment that is not only conducive to a learning, but is also secure, nurturing, and free from harm. It is in this spirit that we bring forth this crucial discussion on school safety. Our schools, meant to be beacons of hope and sanctuaries of knowledge, are increasingly facing multifaceted challenges that threaten their core purpose. We must confront these realities head-on and work collectively to forge solutions that truly make a difference in the lives of our learners and educators. Firstly, we must acknowledge the pervasive threat of crime that infiltrates our schools' gates. From theft, vandalism, to more serious acts of violence, our schools are not immune to broader societal challenges of criminality. This impacts the learning environment, instills fear, and disrupts the educational processes. We must strengthen partnership between schools, local law enforcement, community policing, forums, and parents to create a robust security net around our institutions. This includes
visibly policing rapid response mechanisms and effective intelligence gathering to preempt criminal activities. Equally concerning House Chair is the insidious and often hidden menace of bullying, whether physical, emotional, cyber, or social bullying leaves deep scars and can severely impede a child's development and academic performance. It is a societal ill that we must eradicate from our schools. We need to comprehensively have anti-bullying policies that are clearly defined on reporting mechanisms and robust support systems for victims. Furthermore, we must invest in psychological support services within schools to address the root causes of aggressive behavior and foster a culture of empathy, respect, inclusivity amongst our learners. Peer mediation programs and educational campaigns are vital tools in this right. Secondly, the safety of our schools' infrastructure is non-negotiable. It is unacceptable that in some instances, our children learn in dilapidated buildings with crumbling walls, inadequate sanitation, and unsafe electrical wiring. The threat of structural collapse, fire hazards, and lack of proper emergency exit poses a direct danger to life of our learners. The ANC made a significant strides in providing safe and modern infrastructure, but much more remains. Much more work remains, and the government must accelerate programs for infrastructure assessment, repair and upgrade, prioritizing schools in vulnerable communities. This includes ensuring proper fencing, functional gates, sufficient lighting, and well-maintained ablution facilities that are not only hygienic but also secure. Our commitment to dignified learning spaces must translate into tangible, safe buildings for every child in South Africa. Thirdly, let me start by extending our deepest sympathies to the people of Umtata and the Eastern Cape, including our learners who have been affected by the recent devastating floods. The loss of life and the damage caused are truly heartbreaking. We stand with them during this difficult time. We must acknowledge the growing impact of environmental and climate-related factors on school safety. Extreme weather events, be it torrential rains leading to flooding, devastating droughts, or intense heat waves, pose direct threats to our schools' communities. Schools must be equipped with resilient infrastructure capable of withstanding these shocks. This means ensuring proper drainage systems, access to reliable water sources, and adequate ventilation to combat heat. Furthermore, we must integrate disaster preparedness and response plans into our school safety protocols, conducting regular drills and educating both learners and staff on how to act in emergencies. Proactive measures such as tree planting for shade and water harvesting can also contribute to a safer, more sustainable school environment. School safety is not merely about physical security. It is about creating a holistic environment where children feel secure enough to learn, grow, thrive. It requires a multi-pronged approach involving actively parents, community leaders, and local organizations in school safety initiatives. Also, we need to provide readily accessible counseling and support services and learners dealing with trauma, stress, or behavior issues. It is also important to incorporate safety education, conflict resolution, and responsible digital citizenship into curriculum. We also need to equip our educators with skills to identify and address safety concerns, including bullying and signs of distress. It is quite important to ensure that schools, especially those in disadvantaged areas, have the necessary resources to implement safety measures. As the ANC, we remain steadfast in our commitment to building a nation where each child can walk to school, attend class, and return home safely, having received a quality education free from fear. That is not merely a policy objective. It is a moral imperative. Let us, as honorable members, put aside partisan differences and unite in this critical endeavor. Let us work tirelessly to ensure that our schools are truly safe havens, nurturing the minds and spirits and the next generation of South Africa. Let us turn our promises into protection, our strategies into safety, and our policies into peace for every learner and educator. I thank you.
Now recognize the Honourable Minister of Basic Education.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson And I would like to really deeply thank the honorable members for their contribution. When we bring these matters before the House, we're not only just debating them for the sake of debating them, but we expect to be held accountable by you as the people who are representing the people of South Africa, but we also expect some constructive feedback on government plans. Plans are only plans, but until you are held accountable and they are judged against what can be measured, that is only then that they can really start to improve the lives of others. And so really thank you, honorable members, for your constructive inputs and reactions and suggestions. It is also through partnerships with leaders like yourselves that we are going to be able to speak out against violence, and we're going to be able to make a real difference in our communities. Honorable Shikwambana, I want to agree with you that violent communities breed violent schools. Ultimately, schools do not exist in isolation from their communities. And this is why this plan that we have and this protocol that we have is very much rooted, not only in just what schools can do, but also what communities can do, in conjunction with the police, in conjunction with CPFs, in conjunction with parents at the school. And I take Honorable Ghana's point around getting the voices of learners in these committees so that we can make sure that the learners themselves are also active participants in the solutions that are being produced. Honorable Zondo, I want to say a great gratitude for your continued support. And you are absolutely right. While the issues may be massive, while they may seem insurmountable, we are not going to give up until all 13.5 million South Africans in our schooling system receive good quality education, whether they live in Nyanga or Sandton, that it shouldn't matter, that they should be able to go to school without fear, that teachers should be able to go to school without fear of being victimized or extorted. Until that is done, we don't stop until we are done. Honorable Boshoff, you are absolutely right. The breakdown of families and definitely communities is a massive contributor to the kind of violence that we're seeing in our schools. And again, I think that's why this plan doesn't seek to remove the community from the broader conversation, because ultimately these are children who are being raised by parents. These are children who belong to families. They belong to local churches. They are under local traditional leaders. And so it is with those stakeholders in mind that we are putting this protocol in place that says, unless we have your buy-in as communities, we're not going to make a dent on the issue around school violence. And also remember, honorable members, we also have children who are essentially bullies to teachers, who are victimizing teachers. And it's equally our responsibility as a department to not only look after the well-being of children in our schools, but also make sure that schools are also places of safety and dignity for teachers too. It is their places of work, and that when there are children who are not well behaved, that we are working with their parents and we are working with communities to root out that kind of behavior. Honorable Thring, I want to assure you, whether it is Joshua Peterson or any other child, and I will follow up with you after this sitting, that we must be really responsive to every single child's plight and where they have been made unsafe in our schools. And I will certainly be following up with you on that. Honorable Ghana, thank you very much for raising the issue and for writing to me about this particular matter. It is also, he has given us an opportunity to show, and this is why we must use as honorable members and as MPs, we must use the rules of parliament to be able to get government to account. Because if you are able to ask these questions, then government can come and tell you what it is that they are doing about a particular issue. But more importantly, you are able to hold us accountable. And so we really do like the opportunity and, of course, some of the suggestions that have been made. Honorable Hlazo Webster has called again for the screening of teachers and staff members against the register for sexual offenders. And I can assure you, Honorable Webster, that Minister Kubaya and I are working very closely together. Number one, to clear the backlog and to clear it very soon, because of course we don't want to be in a scenario where there is a massive backlog. Also, number two, we want to make sure that the process is simplified enough so that when schools want to fill vacancies, they can do so without a massive delay of having to wait for this process. And so really we are trying to make sure that that process is done. And then Honorable Shongwe, unfortunately, came here to really play politics with an issue that really should concern us all. She's asked me to apologize. And Honorable Shongwe, I want to say to you, I do apologize. I do apologize. Honorable Gosa, I do apologize. I apologize to the children of South Africa who now have to deal with a constrained education system because of systemic looting that happened under the President Jacob Zuma. It is because of your leader, Honorable Gasa, that we are now seated here where we have to make do with the little that we have, because it's because of your leader of over decades that millions were looted in this country. And so I would want to apologize. I would
Honorable Minister, your time is now expired. Thank you.
South Africa for what your leader has done. And for the rest,
Honorable Minister, your time is expired.
thank you very much.
Honorable members, that concludes party responses to the statement. Honorable members, I wish to announce that the vacancy which occurred in the National Assembly due to the passing of Ms. L.A. Mganga Kabashe has been filled by the nomination of Ms. S. Jama with effect from the 11th of June 2025. The vacancies which occurred in the National Assembly owing to the resignation of Ms. K.N.F. Klonyana and Advocate S. Sali has been filled by the nomination of Ms. N. Chirwa Pungose with effect from the 11th of June 2025, and Mr. I. Ishmael Musa with effect from the 6th of June 2025, respectively. The honorable members have made and subscribed the oath and affirmation in the office of the Speaker. We want to say welcome to the honorable members and also to those who are returning to the National Assembly. The Secretary will read the first order.
Consideration of report of Standing Committee on Appropriations on Public Sector Pension and Related Payments Bill.
I now recognize the Honorable Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Good afternoon to you and good afternoon to honorable members. And let me join you to also extend a word of welcome to the new colleagues who have joined us. I propose that the report be adopted, House Chair.
The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? No objections. Agreed to. The Secretary will read the second order.
First reading debate, Public Sector Pension and Related Payments Bill.
I now recognize the Chairperson of the Appropriations Committee, the Honorable Maimane.
House Chairperson Bagaetsho dumelang. Let me first of all just thank all the members of the committee for the incredible work and dedication they have done in being able to process this piece of legislation and subsequent money bills, fundamentally because of the time pressure they've been all under. Today, honorable members, we open a debate and consideration of the Public Sector Pension and Related Payments Bill to fix the ad hoc and ill-fitting process as to how the state honors its long-term financial commitments and of retired public servants. This category includes former members of parliament, presidents, civil servants, and military veterans. These are individuals who have served our country, some with distinction and others maybe less so. But it is important that we honor our commitments. It is part of our ethos that those who are entitled by law to receive special pensions, medical aid subsidies, or post-retirement benefits are being honored as such. The bill is not about changing these entitlements. They cannot be denied, deferred, or negotiated down. But rather it is about how we adequately budget for and administer in a way that is transparent, consistent, and fiscally responsible. Therefore, House Chairperson, the current system of managing these payments is far from ideal. They're funded from a single centralized line item in the national budget. And because many of these payments are unpredictable and made on an ad hoc basis, National Treasury often has to resort to mid-year budget adjustments or viaments just to keep up. This points to a deeper problem. We lack a proper framework for forecasting and managing these long-term obligations. The bill before us actually proposes the best ways to fix that. It establishes a dedicated account specifically for those public pension and benefit payments, allowing for better planning, greater transparency, and more reliable budgeting. It also, honorable members, introduces a schedule that lists the categories of payments covered, including pensions for retired civil servants, military veterans, and former public office bearers, as well as post-retirement medical benefits. So under this new system, these payments will be made directly from the National Revenue Fund. The Minister of Finance is given the power to amend the list of covered payments, which must be tabled in Parliament for consideration within 3 months. Honourable House Chairperson, the Standing Committee on Appropriation engaged thoroughly with stakeholders during its deliberations. The committee took all input seriously. And in particular, we share the concern that has been tabled by the Financial and Fiscal Commission's concern that clause 2.4 of the bill, of this bill in its current form allows for proposed amendments to the payment schedule to be deemed approved if Parliament does not respond within 3 months. Surely, honourable members, this cannot stand. The committee is unanimous in its recommendation that clause 2.4 must be amended and a further amendment must be brought forward. Because silence from Parliament must never be taken as consent. And I think, Minister, you and I would agree that when we're dealing with public money, that we must bring consensus here. So I support this bill. I support that it be approved. And in line with our constitutional architecture, I re-emphasize that Parliament must expressly approve all changes to such schedules. This is the only way to preserve the constitutional principle of oversight and accountability. This is not to say Parliament can delay in its time. It simply means that Parliament must always give approval. And as we saw in some of the budgeting process, if there is a delay, it cannot be automated that delay means we've given consent. It is our view that once this amendment is bailed and further ones are brought forward, we genuinely believe that this bill represents a positive and a technical step forward. It will bring order and predictability to a complex area of public finance while respecting the rights and entitlements of those who serve the state. It will streamline administration, improve budget transparency, and ultimately protect both the fiscus and the beneficiaries. It is equally important that this matter is done such prudently, and this level of transparency will allow us as members of Parliament to interrogate and make sure that there isn't abuse. With the committee's proposed amendment, and particularly the strengthening of parliamentary oversight, we believe this bill is ready for adoption. I therefore table the committee's report and commend it to this House for approval. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Galeka Mazibuko.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. To all military veterans, post-retirement medical subsidy, special pensions and injury on duty individuals, ANC iyanibona and iyaniva. As the leader of society, we are concerned that the mismatch between appropriated funds and payments obligations is affecting you. This mismatch means that your retirement benefits and medical contributions is at risk. Ningoyigi, have no fear. Our well-functioning National Treasury is equipped to withstand the frequent budget adjustments. However, frequent budget adjustments are not key to ensuring a well-functioning payments of non-contributory pension benefits and medical contributions. This is how we are going to protect you. Okokuqala, we must support National Treasury's approach to resolve the challenge through the Public Sector Pension and Related Payments Bill, which seeks to designate certain payments of non-contributory pension benefits and medical contributions listed in the schedule of this bill as direct charges against the National Revenue Fund. By designating these payments of non-contributory pension benefits and medical contributions as direct charges against the National Revenue Fund, government is able to ensure predictability and compliance that will result in significant growth in the number of beneficiaries. Okwesibini, we must support the ANC in the tabling of the public sector pension and related payment bills. Siyayicela le ndlu yesishayamthetho to adopt this bill as it aims to reclassify certain payments of non-contributory pension benefits and medical contributions as direct charges against the National Revenue Fund will benefit a large number of Black individuals, retired beneficiaries, many of which date back kwala maxesha we-apartheid. We must correct the injustice of the past. Your support breathes life into the Freedom Charter. Let us recognize the Freedom Charter in its 70 years of existence by doing the right thing. Okwesithathu, your support lays the condition for tackling the rising cost of living. This is in line with the priorities of the government of national unity. Kaloku asilibalanga uba siku government ye national unity. Honorable members, most Black individual retired beneficiaries in the amended schedule of this bill were excluded from pension benefits and medical contributions of the apartheid regime as they were deemed inferior. This exclusion has had profound implications on income and wealth inequality in the country. Words of the Freedom Charter must invoke something in our minds, hearts and souls. It is us, Kaloku, who said, open quote, "We, the people of South Africa, declare for all our country and the world to know that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, Black and white, and that no government can justly claim authority unless it is based on the will of all the people, that our people have been robbed of their birthright to land, liberty and peace by a form of government founded on injustice and inequality, that our country will never be prosperous or free until all our people live in brotherhood, enjoying equal rights and opportunities, that only a democratic state based on the will of all the people can secure to all their birthright without distinction of color, race, sex or belief. And therefore, we the people of South Africa, Black and white, together equals, countrymen and brothers, adopt this Freedom Charter, and we pledge ourselves to strive together, sparing neither strength nor courage until the democratic changes here set out have been won. Close quote. The ANC Honorable Chair supports this bill as its rationale of designating certain payments of non-contributory pension benefits and medical contribution ensures payments to Black individual retired beneficiaries, including but certainly not limited the former members of the legislative assemblies of the former Venda, Transkei, Ciskei, Bophutha Tswana and Gazankulu governments and pre-1994 chiefs and headmen. Without guaranteed payments to Black individual retired beneficiaries, South Africa would experience a sharply rising and unsustainable income and wealth inequality skewed by race and gender. Fellow South Africans, this bill remains a complete method for reducing the number of people reliant on means-tested government old age pension grant for their retirement. As individual retired beneficiaries of payments listed in the amended schedule of this bill are removed from the government's means-tested old age pension grant to avoid creating inefficient wastage of resources. This removal of individual retired beneficiaries of payment listed in the amended schedule of this bill from the social grant system creates substantial financing that the government can use for effective targeting of vulnerable and indigent old age pensioners who need support in the form old age pension grant. Honorable Chair, payments of non-contributory medical contribution indexed to inflation enable individual retired beneficiaries to afford and access expensive, high-quality service in the private healthcare system. Of course, payments of non-contributory medical contributions to individual retired beneficiaries relieve South Africa's overburdened public healthcare sector that serves the majority of the population and which is financed from general taxation. Put as simple as possible, payments of non-contributory medical contributions decrease the burden placed on a reduced public healthcare workforce, thus leaving the reduced public healthcare workforce to service only the poor dependent on public healthcare system. Xa ndizawuhlala phantsi, House Chair, the ANC contends that payments of non-contributory pension benefits and medical contributions formerly funded by National Treasury under different statutory and collective bargaining agreements have become increasingly less attractive due to their relative inflexibility and unsustainability. Our task as this House is to build a developmental South Africa that is inclusive. Let us do the right thing. Re bereke mmogo as re romilwe ke batho ba South Africa. Ke a leboga, ndiyabonga.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The next speaker is the Honorable Mwali.
Bese umuntu akaqale ngokuthi athi dudu emndenini wakwaNgqobo ngokuthi ulahlekelwe ilunga lase NCOP elilunga lomkhonto wesizwe sithi dudu emndenini. Chairperson, the effect of the amendment of the Public Sector Pension and Related Payments Bill that is being debated today, it is to remove certain expenditure items from being appropriated as part of the National Treasury budget to being withdrawn directly from the National Revenue Fund. This debate, therefore, is about whether Parliament should continue to be the true decision maker through approval of these expenditure items as part of the National Treasury budget, or these expenditure items should be treated as direct charge against the National Revenue Fund without following the normal appropriations parliamentary oversight process. It is about who should have the final say, who should make the final decision in allocation of the annual budget appropriations for future government spending. It is about the power of the executive to meet certain future financial obligations without having to worry about parliamentary oversight and appropriation. At the heart of this debate, Chairperson, hidden is a lot of rhetoric. It is the sacrifice of transparency and accountability under the guise of providing certainty that these payments will be made. This debate is about giving the National Treasury unfettered powers to effect payments from the National Revenue Fund in a manner that will have this House consideration and say drastically reduced. The National Treasury and the GNU argue that there is a possibility that the validity of contracted future financial obligations of the state may be violated by the risk that Parliament may not make the required appropriations to meet these obligations due to unavailability of funds and other reasons. However, this is simply not true. In our law, the validity of the public contract, it is not affected by the failure of the state to appropriate funds for the obligation that arise from the contract. This argument is simple, fear-mongering to justify the removal of Parliament from its traditional role of approving withdrawals from the National Revenue Fund through the tried and tested transparent process of appropriations. The passing of this amendment will set precedent which will allow the Treasury to argue that more and more of government expenditure should be direct charge against the National Revenue Fund resulting in less and less parliamentary oversight in matters of the budget. It is our argument as MK Party that this bill sets us on a slippery slope that will bring us much closer to be blurred, muddy, cloudy and dark budget process that is reduced transparency and accountability. This slippery slope has already started. The Customs and Excise Act allow the Minister of Finance to impose fuel levies at his discretion without the need to consult and obtain approval from Parliament. It is for this reason that this month the Minister imposed a regressive and a counterproductive fuel levy on South Africans, and Parliament could not even debate the matter. We have to watch from the sidelines as the Minister imposed a burden on the poor to benefit the rich. This amendment, as I close, Chair, is part of the family of laws which will take power of the people of South Africa given to this Parliament and replaces it with the power of the National Treasury to withdraw funds from the National Revenue Fund without an elaborate participatory, transparent process. This is against the spirit of the Constitution. Esizama ukusho kubantu bakithi ukuthi ama benefits awathintiwe. Into eyinkinga la siphucwa amandla njengalendlu. Ukuze iexecutive ithathe inqumo ngaphandle kokuthi ize la sizoyicubungula bese siyayikhonsa bese siba nezwi ngazo. Ngenxa lokho somkhonto wesizwe asihambisani nale report. We reject this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Wakeland.
Honourable House Chair, the Public Sector Pension and Related Bill highlights a critical development that will impact over 2 million civil servants, war veterans, retirees and their families. The total value of these benefits affected exceeds 7.9 billion rand a year. This is an immense responsibility that demands our attention because of the magnitude of the money involved as well as the possible risks. This bill is an administrative and vital measure that has profound implications for our governance, fiscal stability, and the delivery of retirement benefits. At its core, this bill proposed that certain pension, post-retirement medical, and related benefits already established by other laws and collective agreements will now become direct charges against the National Revenue Fund. To have a full understanding what this means, it's important that we need to clarify the matter of direct charges. Direct charges on the NRF are payments that are made directly from the Revenue Fund, which bypass the usual appropriation process as we know it. Currently, these payments are managed under the Treasury's vote due to the administrative difficulty of placing them in any specific department. Unfortunately, this often leads to delays, budget overruns, and administrative bottlenecks. This also leads at times to delayed and/or unreliable disbursements that affects the very people who have served our nation diligently. The bill will transfer these obligations into direct charges. This is a vital step in strengthening fiscal discipline and protecting the dignity of our pensioners. Speaker, House Chair, we hope that the decision to approve this bill will result in certainty for recipients, reduce the delays of payouts, and lead to better fiscal management. It's also important to note whether it's former presidents, retired government officials, military personnel, or members of parliament, these obligations are already protected and governed by multiple laws and collective agreements. Making these now direct charges guarantees that these commitments are honored. Speaker, I want now to focus my attention to the Government Pension Administration Agency, or the GPAA. This agency, with over 1,000 employees, plays an essential role in this process. As the custodian of pension and post-retirement medical benefit disbursement, the GPAA manages payments to thousands of beneficiaries daily. They operate under the oversight of the National Treasury, which will administer these payments through the central budget. This bill will enhance the GPAA's efficiency, reduce administrative delays, and improve transparency, ensuring beneficiaries receive their entitlements without frustration or delay. However, House Chair, the risks. House Chair, it's important to highlight some of the risks that surround these pension payments. The DA is in general concerned about the management of all pension fund contributions by public servants. The first and foremost is the number of obligations that are placed against the NRF fund. It could increase pressure on our fiscal reserve if not controlled and government effectively. Then secondly, tough economic times. If the country is faced with tough economic times, we could be faced with cash flow challenges that could risk late payments or disruptions. The reliance on fixed scheduled commitments means that we are faced with any unforeseen revenue shortfalls. There could be an impact on timely benefit delivery. And then thirdly, House Chair, the matter of how we use our public servants' pension contribution, and in particular, unlisted investments. The largest fund administered by the GPAA is the Government Employee Pension Fund. The GEPF's fund gets invested with the Public Investment Corporation, which is the PIC. The PIC acts as investment portfolio manager to the GEPF, of which the agency does the administration. Speaker, here is the risk. The PIC's unlisted Isabaya fund that holds over 100 billion rand of GEPF and UIF money. The fund has been identified by numerous beneficiaries and media as that is full of reckless investment. By the PIC's own admission, the Isabaya fund is not expected to have a positive return, and 30% of its investment are failing. Some of these painful examples are the Daybreak Farm at over 1.4 billion rand loss, Musa Capital, the loss is at 250 million, and many more other examples. We as a parliament would need to start addressing these issues sooner than later. But this is certainly for another day. Speaker, lastly, this week we saw a press article that surfaced by the Public Service and Commercial Union of South Africa, PSCU, that is alleging financial mismanagement of pension funds at the agency, an allegation that we trust the Minister is looking into, even as we speak, Minister. Leaving these stories aside, let's remind ourselves that these are monies that have been earned through blood, sweat, and tears, and our pensions institutions must be beyond reproach. This risk requires that us, as parliamentarians, in our committees and outside of them, to do vigilant oversight and to prevent mismanagement or undue influence over these critical funds. In conclusion, this bill does not introduce new benefits nor alter existing ones. Its purpose is to streamline payment processes, ensuring our commitments to pensioners and retirees are met reliably. This bill is practical, responsible, and a step towards fiscal discipline and restoring public trust, and is a necessary reform. The Democratic Alliance supports this bill because it reflects our commitment to the GNU, in that it shows responsible governance, transparency, and social justice. But more importantly, it requires us all to exercise ethical diligence and strong oversight. We must safeguard our fiscal stability and ensure that the GPAA is empowered to execute their mandate, but also to keep the Minister and the CEO and her officials accountable in ensuring clean corporate governance. As the DA, we support this bill. Thank you.
The next speaker is the Honourable Mkonto.
Ngiyabonga sihlalo. Ngiyabingelela kumkhuti wemasotsha emnotho Julius S. Malema, Commissars, Fighters and Ground Forces of the mighty EFF. Sihlalo, the public sector pension and related payments bill before us today is not likely to generate disagreements on its core objectives. Very few will contest what the bill seeks to achieve. The EFF agrees that certain public sector pensions, post-retirement medical aid, and other pension-related benefits must be guaranteed and that there should be direct charges against the National Revenue Fund. These are legitimate entitlements that must not be left vulnerable to shifting political or budgetary priorities. However, there is a deeper issue that this bill brings to the surface, one of that this parliament can no longer ignore. The issue is not just what is in the bill, but what is around it. The growing tendency to legislate by gazette, and the dangerous expansion of powers of the Minister of Finance. This parliament has over the years allowed the Minister of Finance and the National Treasury to accumulate far too much authority. Increasingly, major fiscal and policy decisions are taken by the minister and published in gazettes. Notices and sometimes even just announced in press conferences. Parliament is then expected to approve these decisions after the fact. This is not how a democratic state should function. We are pleased that the former liberation movement has lost its majority in this parliament. It gives us a chance to return to meaningful legislative engagements and to draft laws that are practical, rational, and in line with the constitutional principles. Parliament must not rubber stamp decisions. It must initiate, scrutinize, and amend legislation, especially when it involves the public's money. We must recall that we are dealing with the Minister of Finance who believes he can increase VAT, a general tax on all people, without prior parliamentary approval. He believes that gazetting a decision is enough. He also went to court to argue that the fuel levy can be increased first and only then approved by Parliament. This is a systematic erosion of legislative power. What this means is that we have a Parliament that has surrendered its authority to a department of technocrats who are not elected, who are sometimes appointed on the basis of patronage, and who are not accountable to the public. Members of Parliament, including committee members, frequently say they will ask National Treasury for guidance, instead of using their constitutional powers to amend and enforce. During the processing of the 2025 budget, both the Standing Committee on Finance and the Standing Committee on Appropriations made recommendations to the Minister of Finance rather than using the legal power they hold to amend budget and revenue proposals. This shows how far we have drifted from the Constitution, what the Constitution allows. Even in this bill, the Minister of Finance is granted the power to amend the schedule via a gazette. Parliament can approve or reject the amendment, but if it does nothing, the amendment takes effect automatically. This is not democratic oversight. It is passive compliance. But beyond this technical debate, there is a more urgent crisis that this House is silent on. While the pension of parliamentarians and senior public servants are protected, the biggest crisis we face is with municipalities' pensions. Even longer, bomasipala baqhubeka nekudvonsa timali tempesheni nema-medical aid kubasebenzi. Kepha abawabhadali ema-pension fund administrators. Lokhu kuholela ekutheni basebenzi security guards, ma-cleaners, nabosotingadze batithole babukane nendlala nelikusasa lelingenalithemba. This is a scandal that should occupy all of us, but it has been swept under the carpet because in the eyes of many, municipal workers are not important. Their exploitation is ignored because they are not powerful. We must say, if we truly believe in justice, this must change. The EFF support the intention of this bill, but Parliament must reclaim its full powers and the plight of the exploited municipal workers must no longer be ignored. Ngiyabonga, Sihlalo.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Adebe.
Thank you, House Chairperson. The Inkatha Freedom Party
rises in support of the Public Sector Pension and Related Payments Bill, noting its technical precision and the clarity it brings to the funding framework of pension-related obligations within the public sector. At its core, this bill seeks to reaffirm the government's constitutional and moral duty to honor the promises made to its retired public servants, the men and women whose labor formed the backbone of our democratic states' institutions. By making specific public sector pension, post-retirement medical and related benefits a direct charge against the National Revenue Fund, this legislation ensures stability, predictability, and transparency in the financial treatment of these obligations. We appreciate that this bill accounts not only for former public servants under the Public Service Act, but also for veterans, judges, local diplomatic staff, former political office bearers, and those who made sacrifices under apartheid, such as through the Special Pensions Act. However, we wish to place on record three key considerations. While we support the bill's intent to safeguard pensions commitment, we caution against any unfunded liabilities that may burden future generations. We call on the National Treasury to conduct routine actuarial assessments to ensure that these direct charges remain sustainable, particularly in a fragile economic climate. We note that the bill captures various legacy schemes, including pensions for former homelands, the South African Mint, and ex-service persons from pre-1914 wars through to the border war. While we welcome this historical recognition, we call for urgent auditing of whether all eligible persons, especially widows and dependents in rural areas, are actually accessing these benefits. The implementation must be equitable and inclusive. The bill grants the Minister of Finance the authority to amend the schedule via gazette and parliamentary tabling. While the 30-day public comment period is noted, we insist on stronger parliamentary oversight and greater engagement with labor unions and pensioner advocacy groups before changes are effected. This ensures that beneficiaries are not blindsided by technical amendments that may affect their entitlements. Honorable members, this bill is an affirmation that a nation does not abandon its servants once their years of service have concluded, but it also requires us as lawmakers to remain vigilant stewards of public funds and custodians of the dignity of all who served. The IFP supports this bill and will monitor its implementation closely to ensure that both justice and fiscal responsibility prevail. I thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The next speaker is the Honorable Matopa.
Ke a leboga modulasetulo. Tla ke tsaya sebaka sa go dumedisa maAforika Borwa otlhe. Ke tshiamelo go nna lentswe la batho. Today we gather to deliberate on the public sector pension and related bill, a critical piece of legislation that seeks to reform and strengthen the financial sustainability of South Africa's public sector pension system. The importance of this bill. Public sector employees, our teachers, nurses, police officers, and civil servants have dedicated their lives to serving our nation. In return, the government has an obligation to ensure that their retirement benefits are secured, fair, and sustainable. This bill is not just about fiscal management. It's about honoring a social contract with those who have served our country. The bill introduces measures to ensure the long-term viability of the government employees' pension fund. With rising life expectancies and economic pressures, reforms are necessary to prevent future fiscal crises. We must balance fiscal responsibility with fairness, ensuring that adjustments do not unfairly burden current or future pensioners. The proposed changes to contribution rates are designed to reflect current economic realities while protecting pensioners' purchasing power. However, we must ensure that these adjustments do not place undue strain on lower income public servants. Strengthening government structures with the Government Employees Pension Fund is essential to prevent mismanagement and corruption. 58% of municipalities, which is 149 of the 257, are in areas on pension fund contributions. The total debt owed to pension fund is estimated at 1.4 billion and is rising. The Financial Sector Conduct Authority has confirmed that some workers cannot access their two-pot pension payouts due to these areas. This bill mandates stricter oversight, which is a step in the right direction. While the bill is necessary, we must address legitimate concerns. Impact on retirees. Any changes must not erode the value of pensions, especially for those already struggling with the cost of living. Labor consultations. Public sector unions must be meaningfully engaged and ensure that reforms are just and widely accepted. Economic context. With high unemployment and slow growth, we must ensure that pension reforms do not inadvertently reduce disposable income for workers, further dampening the economic activity. Honorable members, this bill represents an opportunity to secure the future of public servants while safeguarding our fiscal stability. However, we must proceed with caution, ensuring that the reforms are equitable, transparent, and sustainable. We support this bill. Let us pass this bill not as a mere fiscal exercise, but as a reaffirmation of our commitment to those who serve South Africa. Let us ensure that when our public servants retire, they do so with dignity and security. I thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you. The next speaker is the Honorable Beasley.
Speaker, as a pragmatic and constructive voice in this Parliament, Action SA will support any legislation that improves the efficiency of government. Far too much time is spent and money wasted in Parliament and the various committees with matters that could be handled with more efficiency. This bill before us is such a case. This bill proposes that public sector related pension, post-retirement medical and other benefit costs become a direct charge against the National Revenue Fund. This is opposed to the current system in which these payments have been made under the vote of the National Treasury. These payments, for various justifiable reasons, are not able to be reliably determined and result in environments and adjustments to top up the contributions. As such, it makes sense that these costs become a direct charge. An area of concern is that by moving these costs below the line and making them a direct charge rather than a single vote, there's less scrutiny and accountability to these costs. In the 2024 budget, these costs for the 2026-27 year were budgeted to be 7.7 billion. In the 2025 budget, these costs for the same period are now budgeted to be 8.6 billion. This is a 900 million or 11.4% variance. This variance is significant, and these costs must be examined with the same detail as if they were an individual vote. For this reason, Action SA will be following up with Treasury and other stakeholders as to why there are such significant variances for these costs. Furthermore, Action SA will be closely monitoring these costs as a direct charge to the National Revenue Fund going forward. Speaker, in light of the improved efficiencies, Action SA supports the bill. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Swart.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, the ACDP supports this bill. It is largely administrative of nature, and it relates to public sector related pensions, military veterans going way back. You can even see in the schedule, it refers to pre-1914 pensioners, and I'm sure those pre-1914 pensioners will be very pleased about this bill. But one understands the need to incorporate all those acts for comprehensiveness, Honourable Minister, comprehensiveness. So why the change? Yes, we understand there are various pieces of legislation, collective agreements, and there's a need to bring them all together. it is very important that those that have served South Africa in terms of the social compact should be helped and should be assisted in their pensions. There were a number of concerns that were expressed. One was about the accountability of the bill. National Treasury says the monthly reports the Treasury publishes under Section 32 include all revenue and expenditure, and therefore these payments should be reported under Section 32 and can thus be tracked. And it's very important for us as members of Parliament to track all payments, and that helps us as opposed to only looking from a historical perspective. There was also concern about the possibility of adjusting benefits downwards. And I think that is also an important aspect that needs to be monitored. And one only has to remember what happened to the Transnet pensioners. And whilst their protracted legal battle was under a totally different pension dispensation, one does need to monitor that aspect, and one trusts that that will not be a possibility being a direct charge. Chairperson, the ACDP does have a concern about the deemed approval provision for schedule amendments. It can't be that silence can be seen as approval. And we believe that that 3-month period is also too short. The chairperson of the Appropriations Committee, Honourable Maimani, referred to this and that the committee was proposing an amendment. And we from the ACDP side, Honourable Minister, would consider that at least 6 months should be given, or even 12 months. And that this amendment, because of the importance of the amendments to the schedule and the possible far-reaching implications, this aspect should be considered when this bill is considered in the NCOP to prevent delays in this very important oversight mechanism, which other members, including from the MK, highlighted was an issue relating to oversight. Despite these reservations, we believe this is a good bill and the ACDP will support it. I thank you.
The UDM. Honorable Ghana.
So, as Rising Zanzi, we join those that are supporting this bill, and also the work of the committee. We are satisfied with both the bill itself and also the work of the committee. So we support the bill, Chairperson. Thanks very much.
The Honourable Schlazo Webster.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. As Build One South Africa, we welcome the public sector pension and related payments bill, and we do so because we support its overall objective, which is to streamline the payment of pension and post-retirement obligations through direct charges against the National Revenue Fund. This is necessary and it's a long overdue reform, and it will improve efficiency and reduce administrative burdens on National Treasury. We recognize also the need for responsiveness in managing complex fiscal systems. Treasury must be able to act swiftly to meet legal obligations that can't wait on lengthy budget processes. But we have to caution that speed and efficiency can't come at the cost or at the expense of oversight. And so it's with this principle in mind that as Build One South Africa, we do share the concerns of the committee on clause 2.4 of the bill, which allows for circumstances where the silence of the House can then be assumed as consent. And this undermines the foundational role of this House in overseeing public spending. We affirm as Build One South Africa that oversight must always be active and it must always be explicit. It can never be implicit. And we support the transition proposed in this bill, but we do so with a clear demand that the recommendation of the committee to amend clause 2.4 is strictly adhered to. I do believe there's something that we should all learn from this, that parliamentary approval must never be assumed by default, but we should also take an opportunity to look inward and look at the fact that this provision is probably here because in this bill, or was proposed in the bill, because this House has garnered a reputation for being slow and a hindrance to government. So Parliament must learn to meet deadlines, and if the executive is expected to act with urgency and to progress and proceed and execute with urgency, so must the legislature. We can't defend our oversight role while we fail to perform it. So accountability and efficiency must always go hand in hand, and anything less is a hollow democracy. So as Build One South Africa, we approve and we support the bill, but we do so with that caution and making sure that indeed what has been highlighted by the committee is indeed seen to and is indeed amended. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Speaker from ATM. If not, I call upon the Honourable Sehete, who's delivering a maiden speech.
Bahurutsi ba ntswalang ba rekile ke re madume ga fele. Dumelang bagaetsho. The public sector pension related bill is going to detail a debate on long-term fiscal view that will show why the public sector pension related payments bill will not crowd out government revenue or cause a high government debt impacting long-term fiscal consolidation prospects. Now, payments of non-contributory pension benefits and medical contribution funded by National Treasury has come under critique, which questions its ability to meet payments obligations to retired beneficiaries that are not linked to any institutions. The evidence so far suggests that appropriating funds through National Treasury budget vote for payments to retired beneficiary is inadequate, since appropriated funds are always insufficient to cover payments obligations to retired beneficiaries. This is because a proportion of eligible retired beneficiaries have grown, creating a mismatch between the appropriated funds and payments obligations to retired beneficiaries. In this way, payments of pension benefits and medical contributions funded by the National Treasury deprive retired beneficiaries of large payments they are entitled. Whilst, of course, National Treasury frequently adjusts its budget vote to guarantee payments to retired beneficiaries, not all eligible retired beneficiaries are covered. That is why a House Chair of Pension Benefits and Medical Contributions funded by National Treasury have been limited to their impact. To avoid exclusion errors and unfairness in these payments, National Treasury is proposing the Public Sector Pension and Related Payment Bill, which opens possibilities of predictability and compliance with payments obligations to all eligible retired beneficiaries. By reclassifying certain payments listed in the amendment schedule, such as the government payments to pre-1994 pension schemes and retired judges as direct charges against the National Revenue Funds, this bill reduces funding instability, concerns due to the mismatch between appropriated funds and payments obligations. In short, designating these payments as direct charges against the National Revenue Fund ensures that funding instability ensures issues do not rise, since charges against the National Revenue Fund allow funds to equal payments obligations that require continuity, predictability, and legal certainty, such as payments of benefits and medical contributions to individual beneficiaries. Critics have raised quite concerns that the growth in the number of eligible retired beneficiaries expands, pension debt would build up, resulting in these payments becoming unaffordable for the government. Consequently, pension debt would cause costs of payments obligation to retired beneficiaries to spin out control, leading to what economists term as open-ended fiscal exposure. More worryingly, these critics charge the government would be compelled to solve pension debt by increasing taxes, which is unrealistic, since relatively small proportions of adults pay personal income tax and value-added tax, already disproportionately burden low-income households, whilst company income tax disincentivizes private sector and foreign direct investment. in the government, or the government would be forced to increase borrowing to finance pension debt, since larger payments to retired beneficiaries would, of course, involve higher net costs for the government. And in fact, a debt finance payment to retired beneficiaries would be an unattractive route for the country over the medium to long term, particularly considering that the country's ability to service debt is becoming increasingly constrained. However, concerns raised by critics again about the long-term fiscal viability of payments to retired beneficiaries are misguided and thus should be dismissed as fictitious and malicious. These concerns should be dismissed as fiction because payments to retired beneficiaries should not crowd out government revenues or cause high government debt and fiscal imbalance. More interestingly, I think we should flight out the shame of the MK party for not supporting this and not supporting consideration of the safety and integrity of our retired citizen. So more interestingly, payments to retired beneficiaries would not require public spending cuts in key social programs, especially grants, healthcare sector, and both basic and higher education. This is because payment to retired beneficiaries are dependent largely on fiscal discipline, which is part of the National Treasury's policy position on fiscal consolidation. In addition to the many other benefits, payments to retired beneficiaries reduce government consumption in the public healthcare sector, since payments of medical contribution disincentivizes retired beneficiaries and their dependents from relying on public healthcare services the government provides. Going further, the ANC supports the Public Sector Pension Fund and related bill, since payments that accrue directly to retired beneficiaries through this bill provide reliable and regular means for retired beneficiaries to participate productively in the mainstream economy. But put differently, payments of pension benefits and medical contributions to retired beneficiaries act as safety nets in a structurally imbalanced South African economy. In short, these payments are important source of livelihoods, support, and serving as vital safety net for the retired beneficiaries. In conclusion, House Chair, I want to remind this House and Parliament that today's debate coincides with the month of the Pride Month, which is a month that observes dedication on and celebration of the LGBTQI community. As we debate, we must be in cognizance of the fact that the queer people are also human beings, and therefore we must resist the temptation of stripping them of their social qualities and human rights. And so, in closing, House Chair, I would like to welcome all the new members that have been sworn in recently. Special welcome to our Mrs. Jama, the leader of the queer community. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The NCC. The Honourable, I don't see the party representative, good. The Honourable Bateman.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair, Honourable Members. Greetings to you this afternoon. The Public Sector Pension and Related Payments Bill proposes, as we've heard, that certain public sector related pension, post-retirement medical and other benefits payable in terms of statutory and collective agreements become direct charges against the National Revenue Fund. Before looking at the specifics of the bill, it would be helpful to provide background information on what direct charges are and when they should be used. In terms of the Constitution, Section 2132, money may be withdrawn from the National Revenue Fund only in terms of an appropriation by an Act of Parliament or as a direct charge. Some direct charges are provided for in the Constitution, such as the equitable share of taxes that are paid to the provinces and the salaries of the honourable members of this House. And the only other way that a direct charge can be made to the National Revenue Fund is through an Act of Parliament. For example, under the Public Finance Management Act, direct charges to the National Revenue Fund are permitted for emergency funding, for expenditure before the budget has been passed, the payments of guarantees, the repayment of government loans and interest, and the salaries of the President, Deputy President, judges, and magistrates. An example of how things can go wrong with direct charges is the Skills Development Levies Act. In the next 3 years, 84 billion rand will be charged directly to the National Revenue Fund to finance the SETAs and the National Skills Fund. These have not delivered the results that they were intended to deliver. And what they have created is ongoing opportunities for waste, for mismanagement, and for corruption. That money should have been left in South African businesses to grow the economy and create the jobs that we so desperately need. However, direct charges can be useful in certain circumstances, and in particular, they're useful for spending items that require certainty for recipients and should not be delayed until the enactment of an appropriation act. Often they're items which are difficult to forecast. And the bill before this House this afternoon meets these criteria. The direct charges it enables are benefits which are already legal obligations established in terms of other legislation and collective agreements. The bill is an administrative measure to enable how they are to be paid, not what will be paid, and not whether they will be paid. Previously, these expenses were housed under the vote of National Treasury, Programme 7, civil and military pensions, contributions to funds, and other benefits. They had been centralized in the Treasury vote because it was not possible to link retired beneficiaries to the individual departments or institutions, and the program was administered by the Government Pensions Administrative Authority, as we've heard, the GPAA. However, the payments at times exceeded budgeted amounts, and so this approach led to sizable environments and adjustments which National Treasury was not able to absorb within its vote. After the bill has been passed, the charges will be paid, as we've heard, as direct charges rather than as part of the National Treasury budget vote within the annual appropriation bill. The bill contains a schedule of direct charges, and these include pension benefits for former presidents, employer pension contributions for MPs who are members of the Political Office Bearers Pension Fund, pension benefits for retired government officials as a result of injury on duty and their medical costs, and medical schemes contributions for retired Public Service Act employees, retired parliamentary staff, and retired magistrates. Also, benefit payments under the Special Pensions Act and pension benefits and medical costs for ex-service staff under the Military Pension Act. The Minister of Finance is authorized to make certain restricted amendments to the schedule following the process set out in Section 13 of the Money Bills and Related Matters Act, which includes public hearings and the consideration of the Standing Committee on Appropriations. As has been mentioned, the amendments are deemed to be approved if Parliament does not consider the amendments within 3 months. The total value of direct charges estimated to be charged to the National Revenue Fund in terms of the Public Sector Pension Related Payments Bill in the coming year, according to the budget, is in the region of 7.9 billion rand. The bulk of this, 77%, is for post-retirement medical benefits, particularly for members of the Government Employees Pension Fund. All direct charges are reported in the annual budget review and the estimates of national expenditure, and Parliament will need to continue to exercise our oversight role to ensure that they remain affordable to the fiscus and that they're not abused. However, it's important to note in closing that the bill does not introduce any new expenditure. It doesn't take away any benefits that exist in terms of existing legislation or collective agreements, and it doesn't affect the collective bargaining process. The object of the bill is to provide that certain public sector pension, post-retirement medical, and other pension-related benefits under legislation and collective agreements should be direct charges against the National Revenue Fund. The Democratic Alliance supports this bill.
The next speaker is the Honorable Molefe.
House Chairperson, the Honorable Bateman has just delivered a lecture on Constitutional Law 101, Chapter 13 of the Constitution. While that may have been necessary for the DA, certain members of the DA, it was not necessary for some of us. It is true that the bill does not propose to change entitlements. And to the extent that people have stood on this podium and said that it will enhance entitlements, it will be better for pensioners, it will be better for so-and-so, that is simply not true. The bill simply talks about process, whether these entitlements are paid through the National Revenue Fund directly or through a more transparent process of appropriations which is used to deal with the bulk of the budget. It is only in exceptional circumstances that things are charged to the National Revenue Fund. It is not a matter of course that we can wake up in the morning and charge items to the National Revenue Fund. That was not the intention of Chapter 13. The intention was that there are certain things that are of sufficient gravity that require to be charged directly to the National Revenue Fund. And we would like to say that this step is not necessary, and it represents a step towards a slippery slope where we are going to start charging things directly to the National Revenue Fund to the point where we will not be able to monitor the discretion that is afforded to the National Treasury by charging to the National Revenue Fund. This is especially worrying because even the chairperson of the committee, Honorable Maimane, agrees that often there are changes, environments that are done in this process. And we think that when such changes, environments are done, they must come to Parliament through the appropriation process.
Order, Honorable Molefe, my apologies. Will you just switch off the microphone of that member who's disrupting the speech here? Please continue, Honorable Molefe.
These proposed amendments have to come to this House through the tried and tested process of appropriations and not be charged directly to the National Revenue Fund. It is a dangerous precedent that we are setting. What is wrong with bringing these changes through an appropriation? What is wrong with bringing, because nobody has argued that bringing these changes, bringing these charges through an appropriation is wrong. What has been argued, however, is that maybe there are delays in Parliament. Well, maybe that is what we need to deal with. The reasons why there are delays in dealing with appropriations and legislation in Parliament, and not change the legislation to allow greater discretion and less transparency and accountability that we get through the process of appropriations. What is wrong with dealing with these payments through the tried and tested process of appropriations? House Chairperson, it is especially worrying that in this draft amendment, there is a provision that says that should Parliament not approve within 30 days, they will be deemed, they will have deemed to have approved. This is a very dangerous thing to do, and I think the committee agreed, and even Honorable Maimane, the chairperson, in his speech, and even Honorable Beasley pointed out that that is a very dangerous thing. The deemed approval, we are not happy with. In fact, in the committee report, the report says that we must propose an amendment to that proposal that will become law after this process is ended. Why do we then, if we are not happy with part of a an amendment to legislation or with part of legislation, why do we then approve it and then with a provision that we are going to amend it? It's similar to what Honorable Beasley dealt with VAT, where he said, we'll approve it, but we're going to amend it. What is the point of wasting money like that? Why don't we set this thing aside, go back and redo it properly? In fact, in our opinion, it should be left as it is now, as part of the Treasury's budget vote. Chairperson, in closing, I was very excited. Hudwa Mosetsana wa Huruti. I was open-ended fiscal exposure. But
Honorable Member, I'm sorry I can't allow excitement to continue.
further engagement,
Your time has now expired.
because it's a maiden speech. Thank you.
The next speaker is the Honorable Sekede, who's delivering a maiden speech.
Thank you, House Chair. The ANC acknowledges that South African economy has remained growth constrained and thus has been operating at below its full potential for over 10 years now. Pension payments and benefits have stimulated sufficient job creation, redistribution, and economic growth across the world, except in South Africa, in which the current retirement system of payments of non-contributory pension benefits and medical contributions funded by National Treasury to individual retired beneficiaries is inadequate to stimulate job creation, redistribution, and economic growth. National Treasury has admitted that appropriating funds through its budget vote for payments of non-contributory pension benefits and medical contributions to individual retirement beneficiaries is an unreliable and unpredictable source of support for job creation, redistribution, and economic growth. The weakness, Chair, lies in the fact that National Treasury appropriated funds seldom match the growing number of individual retired beneficiaries, thus resulting in delays in pension payments and contributions necessary for job creation, redistribution, and economic growth pending budget adjustment. Fellow South Africans, hence National Treasury proposed the Public Sector Pension and Related Payment Bill, which seeks to designate certain payments of non-contributory pension benefits and medical contributions to individual retired beneficiaries as directed charges against the National Revenue Fund in line with Section 213, subsection 2 of the South African Constitution. Designating certain payments of non-contributory pension benefits and medical contribution listed in the Schedule B of the bill enables National Treasury to reliably predict and accurately determine payments of non-contributory pension benefits and medical contributions to be made to individual retired pensioners. Such predictability and legal certainty guaranteed by this bill ensure that individual retired beneficiaries do not face liquidity constraints on their expenditure plans, since this bill assured individual retired beneficiaries of pension payments and benefits immediately available to finance expenditure plans. The ANC is of a firm belief that while the Public Sector Pension and Related Payments Bill will not dislodge the dynamics that reproduce sluggish economic growth and unevenness distribution of financial assets in the country, it is nonetheless the central and sufficient basis for pursuing economic growth in order to generate jobs. Payments of non-contributory pension benefits and medical contributions administered by National Treasury through this bill can be relied on to improve the purchasing power parity of individual retired beneficiaries. In turn, improve purchasing power parity increases demand for goods and service amongst individual retired beneficiaries whose properties to spend on basic local produced and labor-intensive goods and services such as the grocery retail sector in much larger. More importantly, increased demand for goods and service among individual retired beneficiaries provides the main impetus to suppliers to make sustained investment in building their productive capability to creating more job opportunities to match the increased demand in economy. In short, payments of non-contributory pension benefits and medical contributions are important for job creation and more broadly for rapid economic growth. Aside from improving the purchasing power parity of individual retired beneficiaries, payments of non-contributory pension benefits and medical contributions are much stronger determinant of personal savings, and in turn personal savings induce improved investment levels which are currently far below those necessary for long-term economic growth required for significant job creation. Personal savings linked to payments of non-contribution pension benefits and medical contributions are important not only for reducing the rising household debt, which redistributes wealth from the net debtors to the net creditors, but also for increased investment and capital deepening, which were responsible for rapid economic growth rates of Asian tiger economies like South Korea and Hong Kong. The public sector pensions and related payment bill also enables payments of employer pension contribution on behalf of members of parliament who are admitted to the political office bearers pension fund. Such payments provide a crucial source of capital to pension funds like the POBPF, and in turn this capital is used to purchase bonds and equities in domestic and foreign financial markets in search for high return and profits to meet their future annuity and pension obligations. Of course, our share purchasing bonds and equities in domestic and foreign financial markets is incompatible with the government's national priority of poverty and inequality alleviation and long-term real investment in productive sectors of the economy and lead to rapid economic growth and job creation. Worse yet, pension funds tend to purchase a substantial fraction of equities of JSE listed horizontal rivals, which in turn lessens competition and entrenches market concentration in South Africa's product markets. For example, the GEPF and the PIC collectively own equities in South Africa's top 5 commercial banks, and this common ownership harms competition in this sector as it allows horizontal rivals owned by the same institutional investors to change monopoly prices rather than lower prices, further deepening poverty, hunger, and inequality levels in the country. The bottom line is that purchasing financial assets, that is bonds, equities, and that adds no value to reducing market concentration, poverty, inequality, and unemployment levels in South Africa. In this, it is important for the government to reform and strengthen the regulatory framework of pension funds so that their investment patterns complement the government's national development priorities. National Treasury has begun work to reform South Africa's policy and regulatory framework so that pension funds like the POBPF and the GEPF through the PIC can target social impact projects and economic infrastructure. In other words, the pension fund industry requires strategic and yet beneficial policy and regulatory framework reforms that can encourage pension funds to increase their levels of capital allocation to productive investment in the broader South African economy. And the amendment to Regulatory 28 of Pension Funds Act to allow for up to 45% of long-term infrastructure investment by pension funds is a step in the right direction by National Treasury. However, House Chair, more needs to be done to incentivize pension funds to streamline long-term infrastructure investment. House Chair, MK Party is the only party rejecting this bill that will benefit the poor. South Africans must see
your time is expired.
This Zuma party is not about plight of the people. Thank you.
We'll now recognize the Honorable Minister of Finance.
Ndivumele sihlalo pale parlamente kolusuku lanamhlanje ndithumele ilizwi lovelwano kwizihlobo nezalamane sabantu baseKwaZulu Natal nabasempuma Koloni abathe bashiywa zintsapho zabo kwezintlekele ezidlulileyo. Elethu ke kwimeko ezilolu hlobo ukuthi kubo thu bahlala ethembeni. Asentlungwini athi Mposi Lupalusi intlungu zakaloku nje azinawufana nobuqaqabuli okuzawutyhilwa kuthi. Ndithi ke maba nyamezele ezo ntlungu ndisithi thu. Nalo ke elokugqiba bazalwane bam. Coming to the matter at hand, let me start with 2.4 and say to Honorable Mane, also I do have my reservation about the deeming clause. A deeming clause has got serious implication. We lost technology of Denel because of a deeming clause. Some characters sent a letter to Treasury during December because in terms of Section 54, when you are buying a company of the state, and you've got to apply in terms of Section 54. They sent a letter in December to Treasury. There was no one in December in Treasury. And then the 30 days expired. Then Okuptas by 30 technology akwaDenel. Lama kabana kwelicala ayayikhumbula lo.
Point of order, Chair. Sasingekho ngeso sikhathi. Awulali.
Clause has got those challenges.
Honorable Minister, can you please hold for a second? Honorable Member, we don't do that. If I have not recognized you, you don't press your mic and speak. You know the rules of the House and the proceedings. Please do not do that
So a
again.
dealing clause has got those challenges. But let me say, there's no reason, I'm not saying if the committee agreed on that, I would not have any serious problems with that. Because what we're talking about here is not something Treasury would have an interest in increasing anything. Because an increase in this benefit is a cost, it's not a revenue. The second point, an increase in these benefits are not determined by Treasury at all. Are determined by institutions outside Treasury. Let me give you an example. Otatu Zuma, Otatu Montante, no ban, benefits that was determined by the commission, here remuneration, not in Treasury. And once that commission makes a funding, that thing comes to Parliament and Parliament approves it. So none of these post benefits classified here are decided by National Treasury. So that's why colleagues have got a different problem with it. So it's quite important to understand that. The problem is some of them, Treasury does not have any control of them, but they sit under the vote of National Treasury, under Vote 8. Whereas they are not under a program for Treasury to deliver under them. So they are a cross-cutting function. That's why it's going to be necessary, because they are a cross-cutting cost to be charged directly under the revenue fund. Honorable Bateman has made a powerful explanation of it. I'm not going to go into the detail of it. So part of what we're worried about, we're worried about not what is in this bill, we're worried about something else, which is in another law, which is excise duty, whatever we're worried about. It's not here. This bill, I don't have any authority to change anything. They are changed beyond my control. They are also injured on duty, and those injured on duties belong to other departments. For instance, the police have got a better part of that in injured on duty. But it sits under Treasury, Vote 8. So that's the point we're trying to address, colleagues. That's the point we're trying to address. So I'm glad that there's a better understanding. I think we should have that better understanding that we've got no vested interest in changing it. We're quite happy to do in Parliament. I'm also encouraged that there's a reference to Section 32. What we do, we provide better transparency on expenditure. Every quarter we publish a report on Section 32. The problem is, which I raised when we're discussing the fiscal framework, is that you as members of Parliament, you must be able to use Section 32 as the report to hold us to account. The executive. To monitor that expenditure, that's your responsibility. A number of things have been made reference to GPA. GPA deals with pension funds for public servants, which does not deal with these specific pensions other than the veterans. Reference is made to the skills fund. We've made the point that Cabinet has established a committee to look at all what is called all active labor market policy instruments that sits in government. We're doing a review. The skills fund is part of that review. There's a committee chaired by Honorable Meth, which is dealing with that. A recurrent problem is with the pension of former TPV states. On the 8th of July, when I present the vote of the department, I'll be able to supply each one of you with a number in each of those provinces for people to be conducted in order to clear any misgiving about people who have not got their pensions who belong to TPV states. when we table our vote, we'll do that. Reference been made to municipalities that are not paying pension funds and medical aids. That's correct. The Financial Service Conduct Authority has collected the database of those municipalities. We'll be taking the appropriate action to give effect to the law, because that's a breach. They are acting in breach of the law. So we will be dealing with that. Having said all of that, ke malungu omthetho endliso elendlo wisomthetho. Ndanibulela ngokuxhasa lo mthetho ngoba enyanisweni ngumthetho nongafanelanga uba siyaqhankqalaza xa sixoxa ngawo. Mthetho nje ocacileyo bantakwethu ongafuni noba sixoxe nokuxoxa ngesilungu bathi yi-reclassification. Akho budgetary implication, reclassification from vote aid to the National Revenue Fund. Awuhluthi mandla mntwini ngoba inguqu ezenziwa kulo mthetho azenziwa ngumuntu akagodongwana, hayi. Zenziwa ngabanye abakhulu abangaphezu kwam njengoojaji xa besenza inguqu yineyenu. Wawugqiba lo mthetho uze apha phambi kwenu, hayi ndijongile ukuthi awungwanga uphethanga apha kule ndlu. Alikapheli nanku kusenemizuzu embalwa apha ndiyeke ndithethe. Mandinishiyeke ndishino kodwa abazalwane, ndishiya nomoya ingcwele.
Thank you. Honorable members, that concludes the debate. Are there any objection to the bill being read a first time? Honorable member.
Yes, we reject the bill and we call for division.
A division having been called, the bells will be rung for 5 minutes.
Where's my cup as well?
Okay.
So both of them.
You in
You
the
have
entire world.
everywhere. Even now, while he's
Honorable members, the Speaker has determined that in accordance with the rules, a manual voting procedure will be used for this division. In order to establish a quorum, I would request the table to confirm that we have the requisite number of members physically present in the chamber and on the virtual platform to take this decision. Party whips will then be given an opportunity to confirm. Honorable Michalakis.
House Chair, my apologies for interrupting you at this point of the voting procedure. I am receiving reports that some members have been in the waiting room of the Zoom platform. If they can maybe also just be allowed, they did try to join. They did try to join before the bell stopped ringing. Thank you.
Okay, we'll look into that while we are still proceeding with the division guide. And IT maybe will advise if there were members that were on the waiting room to be admitted to. The party whips will then be given an opportunity to confirm the number of their members present, indicate if they vote for or vote against the party. Having confirmed that we do have the requisite quorum, we will now proceed. The question before the House is Public Sector Pension and Related Payments Bill be agreed to. Voting will now commence. The doors of the chamber will be locked and members will not be allowed to enter the virtual platform until voting is concluded. We'll give an opportunity to whips to then say their numbers in the House and on the virtual platform. But before I recognize the whips, Honorable Mukhalakis, we've just received the report that they did admit all members before the 5 minutes. So whoever was on the waiting room after 5 minutes then will not be admitted in. Thank you very much. Are the party whips ready to record the votes of the members who are present? I will recognize the ANC.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon to you. The ANC with 94 virtual and 30 in the House, which works out to 124 vote in support. Thank you.
Thank you. The DA?
Thank you, House Chair. The DA has 37 members online, 22 in the House. That's 59 members in total, and we vote in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. The MK?
Thank you very much. We've got 16 inside the House and 30 online. Therefore, we've got 46 members. Thank you.
Voting?
That are voting against, ma'am. Thank you.
EFF?
The EFF has got 11 in the House, 18 online. Altogether, we're 29, and we're voting in support. Thank you.
Thank you. IFP?
Thank you, House Chair. The IFP with 6 on the platform, 4 in the House, votes in favor.
Thank you. PA?
Thank you, House Chair. Patriotic Alliance with 3 members in the House voting in favor.
We didn't get the numbers, you said?
3 members in the House voting in favor.
FF Plus?
Thank you, House Chairperson. We are 3 members online, 1 member in the House. That's 4 members in favor.
Action SA?
House Chair, Action SA has 4 members, 2 online and 2 in the House, and we vote in favor.
ACTP?
Thank you, House Chair. The ACDP has 2 in the House, and I'm just checking 1 on the platform. That's 3 voting in favor. Thank you.
UDM?
UTM 1 online, voting in favor.
Rise?
Rise, I'm here, have the caucus, the only one, and I'm voting in support of the bill.
Bosa?
Bosa with 2 members in the House votes in support.
ATM, Al Jama,
1 member in favor.
NCC, PAC,
1 online voting in favor.
UAT,
UAT, 1 in the House against.
Good, is there any other member that wishes to abstain or vote differently to their party? The voting session is now closed. We'll then get the results of the division. Honorable members, the results are as follows. Abstentions, 0. The noes, 47. And the yes, 242. The question is then accordingly agreed to. The secretary will read the bill a first time.
Public Sector Pension and Related Payments Bill.
Honorable members, third order, I will allow the secretary to read the third order.
Second reading, Public Sector Pensions and Related Payments Bill.
As there is no list of speakers, are there any objections to the bill being read a second time? Without any objections, the bill is then agreed to. The secretary will read the bill the second time.
Public Sector Pensions and Related Payments Bill.
The bill will then be sent to the National Council of Provinces for concurrence. Fourth order, the secretary will read the last order of the day.
Consideration of first report of National Assembly Rules Committee for 2025.
I now recognize Honorable D.E. Dlakute.
Thank you, Honorable House Chairperson. We are here to consider the first Rules Committee report. We are considering this first report of the National Assembly Rules for 2025. Honorable House Chairperson, the Constitution stipulates that the National Assembly can make rules and orders concerning its business. This is an essential power which gives credence to the separation of powers and status of a democratic, transparent, and participatory parliament. It is the Rules Committee that has the responsibility of reviewing procedures and practice. This committee has, since the commencement of the present term, been considering the following matters: procedures for motions without notice, rules regarding closing of doors during a division, the extension of time for Section 89 impeachment panels, government undertakings and petitions, and procedures for Parliament to consider and amend money bills. Some of these matters are more or less technical in nature, including those concerning motions without notice and closing the doors during a division. These rules are intended to ensure that the House can function without undue complications. Honorable House Chairperson, the National Assembly is obligated to oversee and hold the executive to account, and the rules provide the mechanism for us to do so. These include the establishment of portfolio committees and questions to ministers. There is consensus that we can improve questions. To this end, members have put forward various options. One such is how the instrument of interpellations can be incorporated into our work. In addition to questions, there is a view that too little attention is given to following up with the promises that ministers make from the floor of the House. This is what is called an executive undertaking. What is more, there has also been a concern that public petitions are not always processed in a timely manner. To address these challenges, the Rules Committee has now proposed that the rules be amended to establish a special committee to follow up with government undertakings as well as process petitions in a structural manner. This initiative is in keeping with the best practices elsewhere. Honorable House Chairperson, Parliament must also approve the budget each year. As such, we must ensure that the budget proposals meet the needs of our people, that they stimulate development and job creation while protecting the most vulnerable. The budget is nevertheless a unique instrument in that it affects all portfolios and spheres of government. The Money Bills and Related Matters Act, which came into operation in 2009, provide a procedure for Parliament to amend budgets. Several processes.
I'll join my study group with you so that until we're meeting. Okay. Yeah.
Honorable Dakota, please mute yourself. Apologies, Honorable Dlakute. Please continue.
Several processes in the Act required enabling rules. The rules were updated at the time, but there was a need for further details to ensure that the different stakeholders in the budget process, parliamentary committees, the executive, and the public could participate in a consistent and predictable manner. In the case of the public, The new rules facilitate involvement in that they provide defined opportunities for public input and hearings on the different kinds of budget instruments. Most of the amendments concern the work of the Standing Committee on Finance and the Standing Committee on Appropriations, but the rules also set out how consultation between the standing committees and the portfolio committees can take place. The rules are supported by directives to support matters of practice. Honorable House Chairperson, I believe the rules that we put forward are important as they serve to advance the collective goals of Parliament. They will strengthen Parliament's ability to respond to public concerns and ensure that government remains transparent and accountable. I consequently believe these rules should be supported by all political parties. Honorable House Chairperson, thank you.
Thank you. I will now recognize political parties wishing to make a declaration. The usual times for declaration of votes will apply. The DA.
Honourable House Chairperson, the rules of the House are what makes it function properly. It ensures that we can interact on the basis of a level playing field where the parameters of what is admissible is clear. It's vital for a parliament that displays dignity and decorum, and we have seen what happens when the rules are not adhered to. These particular rules presented today represent various aspects that had to be cleared up and are important in the procedural developments of this House, and we navigate our way through a new type of dispensation. However, some of these rules are also very long overdue. In particular, I want to refer to the rules related to the money bills, which stem from the Money Bills and Related Matters Act of 2009. 16 years after it's been enacted, we will now finally have clarity on the rules that regulate the processing of such bills, including the budget. We have seen this past year the need for clear timelines and procedures in this process. These rules will now create the clarity and ensure engagement across committees and the executive to ensure that the correct processing of the budget and other money bills are adhered to. What is important is that it also does not give carte blanche to the committees, but there is an important safeguard that any regulations made in this regard has to go through the Rules Committee. A further long overdue development is the report on the Committee on Petitions and Executive Undertakings. You might recall that this House has lost its Petitions Committee in the aftermath of the Oriani Ambrosini case back in 2012. It is custom in bicameral parliaments that the function of hearing petitions should lie with the lower house as the direct representatives of the people. In our case, however, the function lies with the NCOP due to that earlier judgment and the subsequent failure by Parliament to set up such a committee again for the National Assembly. It is important that the NA, as the representatives of the people, have a dedicated committee on petitions where grievances from our constituencies can be brought. Having served on the NCOP version of this committee for 10 years, I can also attest that in the case of executive undertakings, where used correctly and for the right reasons, it does add another layer of accountability for the sake of Parliament. We welcome all of these developments and hope that they will contribute to the effective functioning of the House. At this point, House Chairperson, credit must also be given to those who behind the scenes ensure the procedural development of this place and played a major role in the development of these rules, the table staff. To Mr. Castle, Ms. Lyons, and Mr. Handik in particular, we owe a word of gratitude in this case, but also the table staff in general. We in this House owe you all a gratitude that is too seldom expressed and that is much too great to ever be able to repay. I thank you.
Thank you. The MK.
Thank you, Chair. I rise on behalf of the MK Party to express deep concern about the ongoing erosion of constitutional accountability through procedural manipulation, selective implementation of rules, and reforms that present the appearance of progress while entrenching executive impunity. I have time only for 4 examples. 1, this thing called a motion without notice in name only. We must be honest. Motions without notice are not what they claim to be. If a motion must be submitted in advance, then it's not without notice. It is simply a fast-track permission seeking. When you have to give notice for a motion without notice, what you are really doing is asking for permission to hold power accountable. And in any true democracy, that is a job of Parliament, not a favor from the so-called GNU. We must revive the spirit of this tool and permit floor-initiated motions for real-time accountability subject only to the rules. Secondly, a constitutionally critical proposal to establish a portfolio committee on the presidency has quietly vanished through the manufactured cracks of bureaucracy. This committee was intended to oversee what has effectively become a super department with ballooning budget and little to no dedicated scrutiny. Now, Mr. Ramaphosa has announced a networking event, aka National Dialogue, with his elite friends, which will cost the taxpayers 700 million for a few months of chatting. This exceeds the entire GCIS annual budget. It's a fiscal recklessness made possible only by the absence of oversight. Thirdly, the new rules on the money bills process pretend to empower public participation, but they fall short. There's no requirement for qualitative engagement with the actual substance of the public submissions. We saw this in Budget 2.0, where more than 90% of the submissions rejected the framework and yet the budget passed unscathed. The new rules now risk turning public consultation into box-ticking window dressing. Fourthly, Section 89, still a cage for the truth. The Section 89 amendments still allow for a report by a retired Chief Justice, a senior judge, and the senior counsel to be squashed even before it reaches the House. Why must Parliament vote on whether to debate something as serious as impeachment? Why allow a corrupt party to instruct its caucus to block even the discussion of severe findings? What's the point of granting up to 90 days for an inquiry if its outcome can be discarded without deliberations in the House? This is a procedural trap that protects the powerful and weakens the Republic. Chairperson, we call on this committee to do 4 things. 1, restore authentic motions without notice. 2, establish a portfolio committee budget vote 1 for the presidency. 3, ensure public input in money bills is qualitatively addressed. 4, reform Section 89 to guarantee that any impeachment report reaches the House for open debate. These are not optional changes. They are required if we are to be taken seriously as a parliament of the people. I thank you. Kwaza mkonto kwaza.
Thank you. The EFF.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Let me greet the ground forces led by the very capable Commander-in-Chief, Julius Silomalem. Chair, we participated fully in the committee report, and we have the following concerns and agreements. 1, we do support the amendment to the motions without notice, but we must caution that the rejection of motions without notice by certain parties because they are from certain parties is going to have to come to an end. Ngoba, it's a very reckless activity that you're doing. And if you start doing that, we are going to do it as well. And you know where we come from with that. Secondly, is on petitions. And we agree with the petitions that they must come and the process must be very fast. The petitions are very much important because abantu bethu have been abused by the government of the ANC for far too long. Kufiki officials, kufiki minister okanye executive, ifiki amandla ngawethu iparliament ithema kwenzeke oku. With the people having no clue of what bathetha ngantoni. Emva koko bazo implementa ubuxoki bobana abantu bavumile basenze oku noku noku. Therefore petitions are a platform for abantu babazoxelela iparliament basivumelani nento esivayo kubana it, and we must act accordingly. Thirdly, House Chair, is about the issue of money bills. The reality is that the way in which the process of the budget is not done in a practical manner, and that was agreed by both the chairpersons of appropriations and finance, that the time is not sufficient. And therefore, the Committee of Finance and the appropriations are dealing with matters that they are not supposed to be dealing with, matters which are sitting in portfolio committees. But as the EFF, we will make a substantive submission to motivate why there must be a portfolio committee on treasury that must do oversight of this untouchable portfolio committee and the department and its entities, while the Standing Committee on Finance deals with money bills as per the Money Bills Amendment Procedure and related matters. This is the only way we will begin to reform how Parliament deals with the budget and not being a rubber stamp. The last thing, Chair, is that the Rules Committee must move with speed with the Committee on the Presidency. It is not correct that we always debate about vote one, yet there hasn't been an accountability and investigation on how that funds which we have appropriated have been spent and who accounts for such expenditures. Secondly, we need accountability of the executive. The rule that deals with the executive when it has not sufficiently given answers to Parliament must come to this House with speed so that we can get accountability from executive.
Honourable Mentor.
Ixesha loba iministers
Your time
zizapha
has
zifike
expired.
zingathethi into enyani liphelile. Thank you.
Thank you. IFP.
Honourable House Chairperson, the IFP recognizes the importance of a National Assembly's power to determine its own rules. This autonomy ensures that members are fully aware of the procedures governing the House and can carry out their duties with clarity and accountability. We welcome the provision that should a member cast their vote but be ordered to leave the chamber before the results of division are announced, their vote shall be still counted. This is a vital democracy safeguard that ensures the voice of the electorate. Through their chosen representatives are not silenced due to the procedural development. Furthermore, the IFP commends the Rules Committee for endorsing the provision that allowed the Speaker, upon request by the panel, on the good cause shown, to extend the reporting period of Section 89 panel, while extension may not exceed 90 days from the panel's appointment. This flexibility is critical. It acknowledges both the complexity of the matter handled by such panels and the depth of the work required to arrive at fair, reasonable outcome. The IFP consideration of the issues that we have raised, the IFP accepted the report. But furthermore, we can also allude to say that, Honourable Chairperson, we really acknowledge the announcement made by the Speaker during the Youth Parliament here in this House to form a the youth committee whereby the youth members of this House will sit and deliberate on youth matters and make up the accountability to the portfolios on their duty in the matters that pertain young people of this country. We welcome that. We're looking forward to participate on those committees. Thank you very much.
Now recognize PA.
Thank you, House Chair. No declaration. We support.
Thank you. FF plus.
Well, House Chairperson, we have to be honest when we talk about the rules in this House. We have to firstly acknowledge that trust in the South African Parliament is at an all-time low. And that is the responsibility, or something that all of us, all members, should take responsibility of. We can't have a National Assembly and a Parliament at large that South Africans out there do not trust, that they view as a senseless body that does not actually do anything productive to change their livelihoods and to influence their lives. And then these critical amendments to the rules are very important. And I want to echo what a lot of other speakers said, that a lot of these rules are long overdue, especially with regards to the amendment of money bills and how that process will work so that we do have certainty, but also in terms of petitions and executive undertakings. But Chairperson, what also resonates is that a lot of times this House takes resolutions. We today took resolutions in a committee report saying that the Minister of Finance must amend the bill that we approved here. But a lot of those resolutions are never followed through, and there's actually no mechanism to make sure that there is adherence to the resolutions that this House takes. Because when we adopt a report, it has legal effect, but it's as if it's just ignored. And we will have to start taking that serious. The FF Plus supports these amendments. I thank you.
Thank you. Action SA.
Thank you, House Chair. Action SA asserts that Parliament must be more than a venue for speeches and symbolic debate. It must function with purpose, with discipline, and frankly, with clarity. The report of the National Assembly Rules Committee goes beyond a mere list of procedural amendments. We believe it serves as a necessary update to sharpen the tools required to function as an effective democratic institution. By every account, public trust in political institutions is wearing thin. That trust must be rebuilt through rules and parliamentary processes that enhance accountability and improve procedures. This report represents a step in the right direction, but there's definitely more to be done. Take, for instance, the continued failure of ministers to respond to parliamentary questions, or worse, those who do not respond at all. Others reply long after the prescribed deadline. Most disturbingly, many provide wholly inadequate answers to avoid the substance of the question altogether. Action SA supports the endorsement of the Speaker's determination in respect of Section 89 panel discussion. This ensures that future panels are given sufficient time to complete their work without interruption, allowing for the thorough interrogation of any matter before them. Lastly, for far too long, Parliament has played a reactive role in budgetary processes. The adoption of new rules for money bills lays the foundation for a more active, structured, and evidence-based engagement with the budget, one that is strengthened by public participation and guided by clear timelines. Action SA supports the report. Thank you.
Thank you. ACDP.
Thank you, House Chair. The ACDP supports the amendments to the rules, and I'd like to focus on the rules relating to the monetary bills. We have long advocated as the ACDP that we as parliamentarians need to make use of the provisions of the Money Bills and Related Matters Act. This came into operation in 2009, and it allows portfolio committees to suggest amendments to budget allocations within the strict provisions of the Act. Honourable Minister of Finance, we understand it's within the limitations of the fiscal framework when we make amendments, when we propose amendments that could come to you. But it's never been used before. It's never been used before. The Act was passed in 2009, and whilst the rules are helpful in setting out the process, there's nothing to have prevented us making use of those provisions. Let me give you an example. The Portfolio Committee and Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development had a legal aid section that dealt with the restitution of land. That was privatized and that was used for private firms of attorneys. And we in the Justice Portfolio Committee suggested that that funding, once that contract was finalized, should come across to the Department of Justice, to the Legal Aid Board. We recommended that in the Justice Portfolio Committee, but there wasn't enough time to go through the process with the Appropriations Committee. Subsequently, however, we're grateful that that money was shifted. Now, that gives you the example of how you find funds elsewhere, which can then come across to where you believe it should be. And in this case, as the process sets out, one will then appear before the Appropriations Committee, the Minister will have an input, and hopefully you can amend the budget within that framework. The times limits are a problem as we're dealing with the budget issues, and it's difficult to make those proposals now, but this is a good step in the right direction, and the ACDP supports it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. UDM?
No declarations. We are in support.
Thank you. Rise?
Rise supports, Chair.
Bosa?
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. I want to take this House back to perhaps maybe the 19th of February this year, when the Minister of Finance arrived and did not, in fact, table the budget. And when you read the Money Bills and Related Matters Act, it actually makes provisions ultimately for this House to engage on the budget, make amendments, make submissions, and for the process to be in some ways iterative. But we did not use that provision, and it delivered what, and I agree with you, Minister, became a very painful process. I wonder what would have happened had we in fact used the provision of the law. We would have owned collectively the decisions that emerged, and we would have had to live with the consequences one way or another. Therefore, the report that is tabled here today, whilst is a step in the right direction, Chief Whip, I think we need to do more to strengthen the timelines so that we can give full effect to the law. So that in fact we could have processed it in here, so that we can give ourselves time to consider what the budget for next year looks like, make inputs, make amendments, reject, and ultimately when we table the budget on the agreed date, we have gone through the thorough processes. So let's ensure that we amend the rules even further. The second point I want to make in support of this report is that we must strengthen oversight, and in the absence of the Oversight Committee on the President, I believe that when the President comes to give answers in this House, much more attention must be paid to what those answers in fact mean. I asked a question recently and the President didn't answer. Despite all the questions back with the executive, we need stronger answers, and the people who ask the questions must be satisfied with the answers. And therefore I believe the future is about strengthening accountability and the supremacy of Parliament. I support the report.
Thank you. ATM? Al-Jama? NCC? PAC?
No declaration, House Chair, but we support the report.
UAT?
No declaration.
Good. The ANC?
Thank you very much, Chair. The Assembly has undertaken a crucial review and amendment of key rules to enforce our oversight role and ensure the Executive remains accountable to this House and by extension to South Africans. The committee has reached consensus that amendments to the rules governing motions without notice, a procedural mechanism often used for urgent matters, allow a member to move a motion without notice unless 5 parties objected thereto. This approach has since been applied without disagreements among parties. We thought that issue is important to note. The processing of money bills is critical in achieving the core obligations outlined in the Constitution. We are amending the rules relating to the Money Bills and Related Matters Act. This legislation governs Parliament's role in processing the national budget and the related fiscal instrument. By updating the rules,
to strengthen the processing of bills and the National Assembly's capacity, democratize and scrutinize tabled money bills to determine how they serve the developmental agenda aimed at transforming the economy. We further reached consensus to extend the time frame for the Section 89 panel, which considers the possible removal of the president for a serious violation of the Constitution or law. This extension is not a delay tactic. It is about due diligence. It affirms our commitment to robust, fair and constitutionality and compliant processes when the stakes of our democracy are highest. Oversight and accountability mechanism is also about tracking commitments made in this chamber. That's why we will play a vital role in closing a significant accountability gap. Currently, when members of the executive make undertakings from this floor, make promises here in this floor, make commitments in this floor or guarantees, there is no formal mechanism to track their implementation to follow up. This undermines the authority of the House and the credibility of executive pledges. This committee will be empowered to pursue the implementation of executive undertakings made in the House. Report to the House twice a year on the status and timelines of these undertakings, and consider and report on petitions referred by the Speaker in line with our rules, guidelines, and the parliamentary petitions framework. This is not merely a procedural innovation, it is a reaffirmation of Parliament's core constitutional duty to hold the executive accountable, to be responsive to the public, and to ensure that the promises made in this House do not vanish in thin air. The people of South Africa are watching. They expect more than rhetoric. They expect this House to work smarter, to respond faster, and to govern better. That's why these amendments are important. Now let's deal with the issue raised by Honorable Manyi. Unfortunately, he's crying on a wrong funeral. When you talk about the event that is extravagant, that is done by the executive, the rules do not talk about that. You are actually crying in a wrong funeral. Let me tell South Africans and yourselves here what has been an obsession of Honorable Manyi in the Rules Committee. Is to change this maze because he thinks it's westernized. Now, if you bring horns of some animal, when you bring some horns of some animals, then the parliament is pan-Africanized. Now, this is the person we are dealing with, and I'm not shocked. I am not shocked because for decades, this is a person who has been called Jimmy Manyi, but today refused to be called Jimmy Manyi and want to be called Zwandile Manyi. This is the character we are dealing with because if he is called by that name, then he is a true Pan-Africanist. It doesn't work like that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, honorable members. I now recognize the Chief Whip. Honorable members, order. Honorable Minister, order, please. I now recognize the Chief Whip.
No, thanks, Chair. I'm going to avoid this Pan-African discussion. So I propose that the report be adopted.
The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? Honorable Makupele?
Yes, thank you so much, Chair. We want to propose for division of the House and we reject the report.
A division having been called, the bells will be rung for 5 minutes.
We are ready.
Honorable members, Speaker has determined that in accordance with the rules, a manual voting procedure will be used for this division. In order to establish a quorum, firstly, I would like to bring to the attention of the honorable members that this report is a different report. It's not like any other reports. Then we would need a quorum of over 201, and also with the passing of the report, we'll need over 201. the majority of the quorum of 201. My apologies. In order to establish a quorum, I would request the table to confirm that we have the requisite number of members physically present in the chamber and on the virtual platform to take this decision. Party whips will then be given an opportunity to confirm the numbers of their members present and indicate if they vote for or against the question. A member who wishes to abstain or vote against the party vote may do so by informing the chairperson. Do we have the quorum? Okay, having confirmed that we have the requisite quorum, we will now proceed. The question before the House is that the first report of National Assembly Rules Committee for 2025 be adopted. Voting will now commence. The doors of the chamber will be locked. Members will not be allowed to enter the virtual platform until voting is concluded. Whips will then be given an opportunity to indicate of the numbers they have in the House and in the virtual platform, and if they agree to the report or object to the report. I will now recognize the ANC.
Thank you, Chair. The ANC supports the report with a total of 112, which is 87 virtual and 25 here in the House. Thank you.
Thank you. The DA.
Thank you, House Chair. The DA has 39 members on the platform, 20 members in the House. That's a total of 59, and we support.
MK.
Thank you, House Chair. We've got 17 members inside, 31 members online. Therefore, we are 48 and we object to the report. Thank you.
EFF.
Thank you so much, House Chair. Members of the EFF in the House were 11. Members who are on the virtual platform is 18. All in all, we are 29. We support the report.
Thank you, IFP.
Thank you, House Chairperson. On the virtual platform 6, in the House 5, we support.
Thank you. PA.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Patriotic Alliance 3, voting in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. FF Plus.
Thank you, House Chairperson. 3 members on the platform, 1 in the House. That's 4 members voting in favor.
Thank you. Action SA.
Thanks, House Chair. Action SA is 5, 2 in the House, 3 online, and we vote in support.
ACTP.
Thank you, House Chair. The ACDP is 1 online, 1 in the House. That's 2 voting in favor. Thank you.
UDM.
UDM 1 online, voting in favor.
Rise.
Rise, I'm the only member, and we vote in support. We vote in support.
Thank you. Bosa.
Bosa has 2 members in the House and we vote in support.
ATM. Al Jama.
1 member in the House in support.
NCC. PAC.
1 online in support.
UAT.
1 member in the House, we support.
Good. Good. Honorable members, is there any other member that wishes to abstain or vote differently from their party? No. Thank you. The voting session is now closed. The results of the division will follow shortly. Honorable members, the results of the division are as follows. Abstentions, 0. The noes, 48. And the yes, 232. The question is accordingly agreed to. I will now ask members to stand and wait for the presiding officer and the mace to leave the chamber. That concludes the business of the day and the House is adjourned.